Sorry for any mistakes. English is my second language. The story takes place in Poland in 2023 and $1 was around 4 PLN at the time. So a few years ago, I worked as a receptionist waiter at a hotel restaurant establishment. I was working part-time as a student on weekends. The place had a restaurant on the ground floor and hosted events like wakes, first communion dinners, big where I'm from, or just everyday clients for the lower end of the high-end restaurants. 2 floors above that had rooms to stay. So I would check in people, manage the online, or over the phone, reservations for the restaurant and the rooms, or lead people to a table if they were coming for a meal. It was a family business, and everyone knows that the best part about those is that the people working the management positions are based on merit and not family connections. So my manager boss, I'll call her Amy, was annoying, not in a sexist way, she was just an asshole, and entitled, and her mother, going forward, Big Amy, who started the business with her husband, was even more. The whole vibe of all the workers shifted whenever Big Amy came to check some books. As any position where you handle cash of clients, we had a system calculating the balance for each day, and I made some mistakes. I remember I even overcharged someone like 30 PLN once, which I felt bad about for the client. At the end of those days, I left a note with how much was missing or was above. Before college, I worked at a big Walmart-type store as a cashier, and the practice was if I was plus on 10 PLN, no one would care. If it was more, my manager and I, would both have to sign a note saying, well, the employee fucked up, no malice. No one would ever dare to expect me or any other cashier to foot the bill. Common occurrence, I thought, but this place couldn't handle that. So the summer vacation season comes around. On my position, there was only one other worker working full-time, and Amy also handled the position before they hired me. So there were only 3 people in the world, knowing the system of making invoices and managing the reservation system for that place. My fellow worker, who was really nice and taught me the ropes, was taking her vacation. I was to take her shift for the week plus mine, which would be around 70 hours. The place was open 9 to 9, 7 days a week, since my college classes ended for the semester. So just before I start the hellish week of work, I'm working a Sunday, as usual. Big Amy came and checked the books, as she does, and here comes my imbalance. It was 17 PLN undercharged, I remember precisely. No mention of overcharging BTW, so she says I have to pay it back. I respond about not having to, naively mentioning my job contract not including such a stipulation. She dismisses me and says that I have to talk to Amy about it. I say sure and go back to my work. Later that day, here comes Amy. She starts going on about how no one ever behaved like that here before, and how it's obvious that I would have to pay for the imbalance. I attempt to be calm and ask what about times that I overcharged people. She responds that that money of course goes to the business. I once again bring up my contract, which by the way was very badly written. Like a 1A4 page, not fully filled with broad terms like cashier duties, not specifying much. Again, the professionalism of small business tyrants. Also, I had the audacity to mention how bigger and more successful, didn't use those words, I kept tactful, businesses don't put that burden on the worker. She was just an asshole the whole talk, while I tried to keep the decorum. I emphasized that it would be valid of her to expect me to pay if we agreed to it in the work contract. She proposed to have that added, but I would still have to pay. I frankly, with that confrontation, lost all interest in keeping the job. Also at the time, while money was tight, I got the job, because my parents wanted me to, because experience or some bullshit, while they were paying for my college life. It's law in my country that if the parents can afford it, they have to pay living expenses for their kid, as long as they are studying, even into college. So I got it mostly for them. Going back to the job, it was not a lot of money, but it was on principle, so I stayed on course and refused to pay. Amy literally stormed out of the room without resolving it. I talked with my fellow workers. Some were straight up there in the room as she lashed out, and for those not around, talk spread fast. And they weren't really surprised by Amy's behavior, but by me standing my position. Not a good omen. So Amy called me later as I sat at the reception desk kind of clueless, and asked me what I wanted to do about it. I said that I'm not a manager, so it's not my place to figure that out. Still proud of coming up with that jab at the spot. But as she pushed, I mentioned I'm perfectly happy to sign a contract termination that day, foregoing my right to 2 weeks of termination notice that I and she both had. Knowing well that there is no one but Amy to sit at the reception desk for the next week if I was fired, so I thought she would yield the 17 PLN that I didn't even personally keep. If I stole, I wouldn't steal just a one-time fee of below my hourly compensation. I have some dignity. I remember fucking around not working the rest of the day and talking with my coworkers about this, and they, mostly middle-aged with families, were amazed that I was willing to lose my job over this. I was in a privileged position to lose the job, but I did spread some leftist propaganda talking about workers' right and dignity, hopefully planting seeds for some trade union, because that place really needed that. By the end of the day, Amy came back with a piece of paper with both-sided agreement to terminate my contract. I signed it joyfully. I couldn't stop smiling, being aware that with my coworker on vacay, it was 9 to 9, 7 days a week for dear Amy. She wouldn't talk at all during signing it, just handed it to me and checked after I handed it back. Didn't even reciprocate my thank you after giving back the document. This 30-something-year-old was straight up fucking pouting, walking around the establishment, keeping eyes on things running smoothly because of a college kid standing their ground. I am still confused because my training process took like 40 years of working together with my coworker, learning how to do stuff, so they had to pay me around some 800 PLN for that time and the wage of the more experienced receptionist, which I hope was a lot higher. Not to mention the recruitation process. And on the other end, it was 17 PLN. I even DM'd my coworker to say goodbye and make sure that she wouldn't be forced to cut her vacation short or anything crazy. She beautifully summarized the case, reassuring me she wouldn't let her vacation be disturbed. After I told her about repeated boorish behavior that escalated that day, she messaged me, "Oh yes, Shinich Amites is known for that type of behavior." Unfortunately. But not everyone has to endure that, of course, and I absolutely understand you. From current perspective, I'm kind of mad I didn't push for compensation for my time that I reserved to work around in the following week, but I'm still happy thinking about that asshole working a full week, like us lowly folk, who don't have parents owning businesses.